My guest today is Mr. Alex Salazar. Alex is a former Los Angeles police officer turned social activist. He was a police officer during the Rodney King beating and the 1992 LA riots. Alex was assigned to the infamous Rampart Division and worked a number of assignments, including undercover narcotics. Today, Alex travels around the country speaking about racism, corruption, and post traumatic stress disorder in law enforcement. Okay. Alex, man, it's great to have you on the show. I've been waiting a long time for us to get together and talk about, what's going on in the police department and what's going on in law enforcement in general. You've done a lot of things, and it's my pleasure to have you on the show. Welcome.
I thank you very much, Brian. I'm very happy to be here and to finally record this meeting that it's been a long time in coming. So you set the precedence back in 1997 when you wrote the book One Time, The Story of a South Central Cop. I remember ordering it through your unique email. LAPD author at AOL, it sticks in my mind to this very day, and me reading the detailing of you, pretty much everything having to do with LAPD culture. And this was 1997, 1998. The year I left was 1998, and I was going through my own demons at that particular time, along with my sister, Sandra Salazar. You Google her, Sandra Salazar, LAPD. She was forced to testify against a couple of her partners that assaulted a homeless man. And so looking back, I remember that year, those particular years as very powerful years. We had the full-blown Rampart scandal going on. My sister was involved, like I said, in this very high-profile case of incidents going on all over the city, and then myself. I had pretty much lost my mind. And another person, a really good friend of mine, my classmate, Stuart Guy, he was wounded in the North Hollywood shootout. Right. And so that time period there, especially reading your book, really stands out for me, probably as the most powerful years of my life in what was going on in the aftermath of Rodney King. And so I'm very honored to be here, very awestruck, by you, because you were the runaway slave, man. Nat Turner, who exposed everything in your book there for the longest. And if I'm not mistaken, you had over 300 allegations. You were under surveillance for 7 months, 8 months, or something crazy, all because you had exposed the problem. Right. And so I've been, hoping for this day, and thank God it's arrived. Today is July 28th, the year 2020, and you came out in 1997, so it's been over 23 years. Yes. And I'm glad to be here with you, my friend.
Well, thanks. Thanks for coming on the show, and it's my pleasure. So, I mean, we both have a similar background, and we're both from law enforcement, and we've been through it. So today we're just going to talk about certain things that are going on now and things that happened in the past, and we're not going to pull any punches and no BS. So the first thing I want to ask you is, being a police officer, I understand that a lot of cops, when they're out there doing traffic stops, that they're not actually pulling over people just because of a minor infraction. In their mind, that person is guilty of a felony. Maybe they've done a robbery, they think they've committed some type of violent crime, but people don't understand that. So I wanted you to kind of explain and give me your opinion on just how dangerous and how volatile traffic stops are that involve Black and brown men.
Well, they're very dangerous, and they've always usually been the reason why there's so many shootings, because someone's provoked into doing something or being put into a situation that causes you to react or maybe overreact. Historically speaking, law enforcement has called this good policing. I had a hunch. This is, I could smell those bald-headed guys look like gangsters, and yeah, maybe that does happen. Maybe they do catch, someone, but it's a numbers game. And during this numbers game, you become the lottery winner. You can become the lottery winner of a good whip ass, being shamed, for daring to question, officer, why'd you stop me? Oh, we have a fucking know-it-all here. You think you know the law, don't you? And then you're being pulled out and then being attacked all because you asked a simple question by an officer who's perhaps traumatized or just angry.
Right. Now, you talked about being angry. And I admitted, and I wrote in my book one time about how I was angry and just how overall the department caused my anger, and just so many different things in my personal life. And I was just angry. I was probably as violent to police officers as I was to people on the street. In your opinion, I mean, how much of a ticking time bomb are police officers?
Well, as we can see, and for the citizenry that's watching this right now, officers are taking time bombs every day. You don't know who's going to go off. And even in the midst of all these marches, protests, officers are doing dumb things. Right. Why? Because they cannot help themselves. They're mentally ill. Many are suffering from PTSD. And so PTSD isn't one of those things that you can turn off or on. It's there. And all it takes is the right situation, the right time, the right circumstances for a concoction of someone blowing up or being in that moment, like how that officer was, as he, sat on the most sensitive, delicate part of the neck of the individual who died, who passed away, George, oh gosh, what was his name again?
Floyd.
George Floyd, right. Sorry. And he's just there nonchalantly with his hands in his pocket, like, oh, well, this is normal.
Yeah.
And of course, that's the problem here is we, the citizenry, we're being taught, we're being desensitized to think that this behavior is normal. It's not normal. No. You have sick, mentally injured cops, of which I was one. And I also have written very publicly about my aggressive behavior in being a ticking time bomb cop. Right. And just losing it. And I've shared the story numerous times where I was working undercover in the projects with my partner. I'm driving the car, and we had just had our buy money stolen from a little gangster who, we were supposed to buy some crack cocaine. And so we're driving around the neighborhood looking around for the guy who took our buy money. And one of his homies comes out and, starts talking to my partner. And then I'm just there holding the steering wheel of the car, just kind of lost somewhere, not focused on what was going on, because I was going through a divorce at the time, or I was just having a multitude of problems, and I was not there. I was essentially an officer safety issue, just being there at that moment, because the ticking time bomb was about to arrive. So as this gangbanger, hit the car, and again, I was in a trance, hits the car, it set me off. I became the Tasmanian devil at that moment. Gone was the music of the violin. I came out with my Yazoo radio. I took it and I hit the gangster over the head. You want a piece of me, motherfucker? And I just took it out of my head and I just hit him. I mean, that was just it. It was instantaneous overreaction. Instead of me keeping my cool, I lost it. I snapped. And the next thing I knew, everybody started coming out of the houses, the project, the whole area, all the gangbangers. And backup units came by, of course, the other undercover teams. And there we are. We're all fighting in the middle of the street. And I remember one of my backup officers wearing the raid jacket and vest, had hit the car of one of the undercover officers. I was parked in the middle of the street. Remember, they had come to a backup. They just left their car there. And as he's coming around the corner at 50 miles an hour, boom, he hits the car. And the undercover car goes flying like 50 to 100 feet or whatever. And the fight did stop for a second. And there was then I realized, oh my God, what did I just do here? I was in horror that I looked over. And of course, all this was swept under the rug. Okay, because that's just the way things work. That day it was my day to start shit, and then another day it was, someone else's turn to snap. And so reflecting back, and once I found out about the whole PTSD monster through a book called Cop Shock, written by my friend Alan Cates, it taught me that 1 in 3 police officers suffers from it, and that there's just a multitude of suicides. And looking at all the symptomology, I was able to see, oh my gosh, that's me.
Right.
That's me. And so I became an advocate at that moment when I realized, oh my gosh, we got to help out some of these officers. But not only that, here was all these people, particularly Black and brown, being executed by officers that I knew, by being a private investigator and working on behalf of some of the civil rights attorneys, that these were in fact executions.
Right. That's interesting that you mentioned that, about PTSD. When I wrote my book, I wrote it strictly about LAPD and the sickness that I had and that I saw, and the sickness that looms over the department. But at that time, I thought it was just LAPD. I had no idea that this was a widespread pandemic among law enforcement agencies. And after I wrote my book, I started getting emails, and a lot of the emails were from officers from other departments that were telling me, hey, this happens in my department. I didn't know that. And for me, that was an eye-opening experience. I thought it was just my experience. I didn't know other people had the same experience. When did you learn, or if you always knew, when did you learn how big this problem was, and that it was just, something that all law enforcement agencies go through?
Well, I almost learned this immediately. That's why, combined with your book, Alan's book, Cop Shock, one time, the book that you wrote, I was able to formulate a larger picture of, not just being focused on LAPD, but I began to do research. And as you mentioned, you got contacted. I also got contacted because I did a website called copshrink.com. Right. And the article, I remember writing several articles. One of them was the double life, of how a police officer can become a good guy, can be a good guy, and then becomes a bad person. Right. Okay, that was a weird transition, and I wrote that story based upon the fact that I was working undercover, buying crack so much, even using it. Okay, one of my supervisors got arrested in 1998 for being a heroin addict. Wow. Okay, so, he'd been on the job since 1962, before we were born. And he was running the whole unit. Right. Okay, and so I put 2 and 2 together, and I said, oh my God. And then I had 6 partners that committed suicide, supervisors, partners, during the Rodney King thing, and a couple of them had bad shootings. Others were having relationship problems and drinking problems, and it was just out of control. Right. And so living in that time period, pretty much coming on before the advent of the internet and the video camera. Okay. The video camera technology changed everything. It changed everything. Yeah. And so, as you mentioned, this has been going on forever. Why are people so angry now, and why has the protest changed? With George Floyd, it's not something new. But what is special about that incident that has just really just changed the way things are done now? Well, as you mentioned, this has been going on for the longest. There's nothing new under the sun when it comes to police brutality. This has been business as usual. The problem is that the United States of America has never bothered to look at the historic, deeply rooted origins of how all this came to be. It's been like, don't talk about that. Right. Don't talk about that. Black people, don't talk about that. Exactly. And now we're forced to talk about it, where you're seeing something, oh my gosh, these guys are asking, I can't breathe, and he's just there nonchalant killing him. What's the problem here? So the imagery, just like Rodney King, has been very powerful in raising the awareness of what's going on here, the racist behavior. But also, what's not being talked about is that these guys are sick. Exactly. Okay? They're mentally ill. They're fucked up in the head. And when you're fucked up in the head, and they're telling you, no, you're not fucked up in the head. You're all right. You just have small problems. You just need to find yourself a new woman. You need to go drink some more. Whatever it might be, they start self-medicating, as I did.
Right.
And I still deal with a lot of the issues that stem from that time period. I'm still dealing with it. I'm not healed, although I know about it. My brain is scrambled. And
Right.
I have to live with that forever. That it's no longer when they beat the shit out of me that day and tried to kill me. I changed, and I will never be the same. And just like a lot of other police officers that are watching this right now too, they will never be the same. And hopefully, they are learning. They're not seeing us as, well, there's this black guy and this Mexican talking shit about law enforcement. No, we're here trying to help them and to rid them of this sickness, because really the department's not going to stand up for you. We see what they do when an officer starts to develop these mental issues is they crucify them. Oh,
Right.
you're a bad cop. You were a bad person. You tarnished the badge.
Yes.
Okay, when they all knew what the hell was going on for the longest. Okay, they all knew it. And so all this is a game with all these politicians, all the chiefs, all these officers kissing ass now, because now they are under the microscope. It's the emperor's new clothes. They are dirty and rotten to the core, and nothing's going to change until they admit it.
Right.
Okay, because that's the only way you do it, is by, like how you saying, I was angry. I was angry. I mean, there's a lot of trauma here that we really truly don't realize and understand here, Brian, as you know. When I talk to you, I feel like I'm talking to a real psychologist, because you wrote about it
Right.
very accurately. You're not skirting nothing. You were the prophet right from the beginning, when you brought out your amazing book. And I'm not trying to plug you or anything like that, but I mean, really, you were the OG, that you the writing was on the wall with what you were doing. And I don't know, I kind of looked at your bio. Why would you do this as an active duty cop?
Yeah. I was.
That's what the crazy part of it
Right.
all was. And here you're in uniform driving this gangster, you got the gun to his head. And I was like, oh my gosh, it was very powerful, very extremely powerful. And I hope one day, you are acknowledged for the beautiful person that you were. You are a true Serpico, my friend, that try to write about it. But as we saw, they came at you full force
Right.
for exposing, this problem. I mean, there should be a Brian Bentley Day, within the LAPD, for you going there and talking about this and trying to set this straight for what it was.
Now, that what you're saying brings to mind something, and Christopher Dorner. For those who don't know, Christopher Dorner he was an ex-cop who went on a shooting spree and killed a bunch of law enforcement officers, and he wrote a manifesto before he did it. And he was talking about being fed up, about being angry, about being mistreated, just about being screwed up. And so when I saw him, I thought to myself, that could be potentially a lot of other officers.
And it was. Remember Joe Jones?
Yes, I do, definitely.
Mhm. He wrote his manifesto during that time, and he felt the same thing, just what I know you're feeling.
Right. And so with Christopher Dorner, I mean, how big was that? What did that do to law enforcement? I know it raised some eyebrows. For me, I was on CNN because of that, and some other officers started coming out and speaking about their time on the police department, because it kind of changed. It's began to change the views of some of the citizens. They started to think differently. In your opinion, how big was that?
Well, it was obviously very big, because the lives of innocent children,
Right.
and other people were taken. But it begs to the point, kind of like with Nat Turner. And I see Christopher Dorner as a modern day Nat Turner. And again, the lives there are first and foremost in my mind, I'm sure, in anyone's heart, because I don't think I could ever stand to lose a child. But with that said, this hypocrisy where they destroyed this man's reputation, not just with the police department, but with the Navy. He was a naval officer, and they tried to minimize him in his death, that he was this incompetent person, yet was able to take out all these people and elude a 1,000-man hunt. of cops coming after him. And he spoke on things that I knew were true when he wrote his manifesto. He spoke of the truth. And whether you're a cop in LA, Chicago, New York, Miami, wherever it might be, you know what he's saying is the truth. And the truth in the long run, it sets you free. And for him doing what he did, it just said, I will teach you motherfuckers to fuck with us. That was the message that he sent, because, you know, here he was trying to expose some sort of police abuse, which we know goes on, whether it's a woman cop, female cop, or male, we know it happens. And for whatever reason, they dismissed it, as they will often do if you're out of line with that policy. That's why they have these police board of rights, okay, where they try to keep everything internal affairs, as they like to say, so it doesn't embarrass them or make them look like idiots. You know, so I mean, Christopher Dorner was really big, because, you know, he let them know, you know what, there's people out there that will come out and maybe do the same things like how he did, or others like you, for example, to a lesser degree, of course, that are trying to scream out, hey, you know what, there's injustice in the system. This is happening. This is going on, and it's not a figment of our imagination.
Now, when I first came out and I wrote my book, there was no cell phones. There, you know, someone may have a video camera, but by the time they set it up, turn it on, you know, you'd be done with your business. But I went through my whole thing with the LAPD without having any support, any type of evidence. And I know you did too. It was just your word. You know, we didn't have a video. We couldn't say, look, this is happening all over the world. It was just what we said in our word. That's all we had. You know, I went on I tried to get on a national talk show, and they told me that they labeled me as a police conspiracy theorist and said that my views were twisted. And so I'm just, you know, and so I went through a period where I was just really, it was just really tough for me. I mean, how was it for you? You know, you just speaking out and you couldn't show anything, no proof. I mean, how was that for you?
Well, my proof came in working with the families of whose loved ones have been killed by the police. I became very close to Cephas Johnson, Uncle Bobby, Oscar Grant's uncle, Aunt B, Christina Arachiga, Laura Valdez. I mean, I feel bad. Names go on and on and on for all these families, not just in California, but nationally, internationally. You know, I've been able to meet to understand their pain. As far as the cops go, you know, I come from a cop family. Some of them very highly connected. Some of them still police officers to this very day. But for me, I got a lot of flack also, as you're mentioning right now, because I was talking about something taboo. Much like the Catholic Church, not one single priest or pope coming out to say, hey, there's, you know, priest pedophilia. You know, now, and we're looking at police now, you know, obviously, you know, they're not saints either, or priests, but it was just so rampant. It was just so rampant, and that there was this powerful culture which says, no, you can't say this about them. You know, the police are respected, just like priests are respected. They're holy, and this is part of our system, and you're a bad person if you try to talk about this. And I think what's happened here is we become so conditioned. There's so much of this problem going on, and perhaps the government and psychologists are aware of, well, you know, if people really knew, what are they going to do? Okay. And with law enforcement themselves too, you know, it's become a very dangerous and precarious time, especially now that the whole race thing has finally been brought out. It's not something where, you know, you know, they would whisper nigger or something under their breath, or in the case of a loved one that I had who would say fun people. Oh, you're a really fun person. He would tell this to the blacks, young blacks. I'd be like, why do you say these are fun people? And, you know, these are fucked up niggers, you know, just like that. And so it's all come out now that there are people, you see them on the video, the Karens, that lady in Central Park screaming, as, you know, making it look like the black guy's attacked her. Ah, he's coming at me, you know, and screaming. And I mean, it's all out. And I believe that we never talked about this before. for because it would get you killed. They got Dr. King killed, Malcolm X, speaking very strongly and powerfully with such rhetoric that it would say, you need to shut that motherfucker up. You know, and so I've worked in that environment myself. I have my picture put on the police station walls, and I got called by one of my family members. Hey, you dummy! You know your picture's all over the station wall saying that you're conspiring with gangbangers to assassinate Los Angeles police officers. I'm like, what? You know, what reality was is I was out there doing an official investigation, okay, because this person had been beaten in broad daylight by this police officer, broad daylight. And he was coming back into the projects antagonizing the people living there and acting like Denzel. I run shit here. I'm the police, you know, that type of crap. And he kept on coming back. And they actually had a picture that they showed me where he's taunting them and laughing at them. And this is just days after he killed one of their homies, right? And trying to establish that control over the community, which, as I mentioned, you know, Training Day, it parallels. I mean, in many cases, a lot of these films, they parallel what exactly is going on out there.
So you have a lot of officers who will say they've never seen any type of misconduct, they've never seen police brutality. Why is that? Is it true? What are they just making it up? Why do you hear so much denial?
Well, it's like a pedophile priest going down on a kid. Okay, they can't say that, you know, yeah, I beat people and I didn't do anything about it. Okay, I mean, you're saying, you're admitting to a felony, okay, on tape, that you are a criminal. Okay, and so there's this little game that goes on that's played there where they can never say that, yeah, I did this, I did that, especially if it's another police officer, because then you're a fucking rat. We've seen that that's what happens all the time, that it's very much a hard thing, if not impossible, for a good cop to exist in law enforcement, because that good police officer leaves sooner or later because they're not getting backups. They're being put in situations, as Frank Serpico was once upon a time. I'm sure even you, when your book came out, they were like, be careful riding with that black guy. Yeah. Okay? Whereas our mutual friend Cheryl Dorsey, you know, she was a very strong, opinionated black woman. She said that they had said that she was a plant for the Nation of Islam. Wow. Okay, I mean, just crazy stuff like that, where it's difficult, if not impossible, to be a righteous police officer. You have to go along with this particular culture, and any police officer that's watching this federal agent, they know that, yeah, he's right. Okay, you play game or you're out, and that seems to be the problem. If you look at what's going on, and I'm not a politic person, I'm not going to get into it, but there's these things here, these ways or lines of thinking that you know, divide us. Okay, some people say it's okay, go ahead, give them an extra punch or kick, or let them slam their head inside the car. It doesn't matter, right? You know, but it does matter, because you have that type of mentality, you're going to be out there wreaking havoc. Yeah. And that's what I did along with my partners when they would take young, impressionable gangbangers and drop them off in a rival gang neighborhood. What would happen? Right. A gangster would run for his life, get beaten up or worse. Yeah. Okay, and we wonder why there's black on black crime. Yeah. Okay, yeah. Because we instigated, the police have instigated much of this problem. Wow. And so, you know, that's everywhere. That's not just Los Angeles. That's Chicago. You look at Chicago with its astronomical homicides on long Labor Day weekends. You know, it was told to me by a retired officer out there, it's not necessarily the blacks doing stuff. It's, you know, a racist thing. KKK idiots out there lurking and hiding and making it look like it's the black people shooting themselves. Okay, and so I've heard that for the longest. But these are things people don't talk about. Just like I was looking at you being interviewed by Benjamin Crump, whom I know too personally, regarding Tupac. I'm sorry that we're getting off a little bit here, but they didn't want to talk about the fact that the police was right there with Tupac or with Biggie. Okay, that has never been an issue, because why? It's the police. You don't want to fuck with the police, you know, and that is like I said, something that we need to destroy now, because as Sir Robert Peel wrote, the people are the police and the police are the people. And we have to remember that, because we've really gotten away from that. And when you go on to become a cop, it's like, oh, I'm going to go catch the bad guys. Well, you got to be careful, you know, as again, you know, the title Chasing Monsters of my book takes Rafael Perez's quote to the court the day he was sentenced. He quoted Nietzsche, Friedrich Nietzsche. He said, be careful, for he who goes into the abyss that chases monster, that he doesn't become a monster himself.
Right, right.
And so for me, that has been kind of like my life lesson in trying to understand, you know, how did I become this way? I did not sign up for this, to be an abuser, to be an angry person, to use that power, as Cheryl Dorsey says, drunken with power behavior, to use my badge to do whatever I wanted. And so that is what we need to address right there, I believe. And also, you know, in searching for officers who aren't racist, okay, who don't want to be just ghetto gunfighters thinking that they're in the African Serengeti and they're out there hunting people like they did in Vietnam. You know, because I work with people like that. I'm sure you did too. I worked with one guy, he had 8 kills on the department. 8 kills on the damn department. And I can remember patrolling Rampart right there, MacArthur Park, Westlake, Beacon, Bonnie, Brave, Burlington, all those streets, you know, they lined up. And the only time I would see a response from him was when a 415 man with a gun call would come out. And then it was pedal to the metal. You know, he wanted to be the first one there to shoot someone.
Right.
You know?
Right. Right. So the Los Angeles Protective League right now is running a campaign, and their thing is saying that if you want change, then you should join the police department and become part of the change. I mean, how realistic is that, and what is your opinion of that statement?
You know, it sounds good. I think it's not genuine. I think it's not real, because if you're going to join the police, you have to join to want to eradicate racism. I would submit that you write at least a 20-page essay on racism if you want to be a Los Angeles cop or a police officer anywhere. You write why you're not a racist and why you detest racism and give examples of racism and why you believe everybody is truly equal. Okay, those officers that say, fuck that shit, I ain't writing nothing good about niggers and blacks and Mexicans or whatever, okay, obviously they need to go, okay, because you can tell who these racists are just by looking at them.
Right.
Okay, I have a senior good friend of mine named John Nuts. I'll mention him because he's pretty public now. He was a station commander the night Rodney King was beaten. And he's made a total, complete change towards guardian policing, which is now the hot topic. But this has been around for the longest. It has been around for the longest. And I believe with good leadership that we can change it, Brian. I believe that innovative cops that are thinking, okay, you know, we need to help these people rather than Roger that. We've got a male black suspect here running down. Looks like he has a handgun. Or developing some kind of crazy reason, twisted reason in your mind to shoot the person. Now, granted, there are those situations where you have to take a life. You have to. I've been in gunfights where somebody took out a gun on me on broad daylight, and bam, here we are shooting it out. You know, and thank God I didn't kill him or kill anyone. I killed a couple car windows, but you know, those things happen where you have to protect yourself. I'm all for that, but there are officers out there, and you've spoken about them on some of your other shows and programs, people who haven't listened to, but you've spoken about this, and it really is a labyrinth of craziness that goes on, because there are officers who want to kill people. Okay, I worked with those people that they wanted another notch, and for them,
you're still hopeful. You're still hopeful.
I'm still hopeful. I try to be hopeful because you know, I want to believe that there are police officers that want to treat people as human beings.
Right.
Okay. And if we can attack the racism, if we can attack the PTSD, okay, and get final awareness and understanding of the historical nature of the Civil War and how it plays, you know, 200 and whatever years later, you know, we need to have that understanding, and then there could be change.
Right.
And some people I know will say, nah, you're crazy, man.
You know,
I know that. But we have to be optimistic, that we can continue to grow, not just in the technological arena with, Zoom or Skype and all this technology that we have, but that we can eradicate this old age caveman way of thinking of using force.
right.
And we can be done.
Your solutions are absolutely on point. I just don't think it's going to get there because it involves not just law enforcement, but it involves the local politicians who just don't understand and don't know how to implement, these changes. And I totally agree. I think that police officers, every time they have a use of force, should have some kind of counseling, some kind of therapy, just to kind of be deprogrammed from that, because I know it builds. And yeah, I know they have a program that helps officers who are in shootings, but I'm talking about just on the minor scale, just the very basic use of force, so it doesn't gradually build up. But I don't see departments doing that.
Right. Well, I do, by us having this first talk here, Brian, hopefully, this will get out to the police community and they'll be able to look at it. And I want to be optimistic, because if we aren't, it's going to become one of these crazy futuristic movies like Escape from New York, I mean, it's already like that in some areas of the city, as you know. But, we need to, when we talk about defunding the police, defunding should mean that, okay, we're going to direct $150 million here to the mental health well-being of these police officers. We're going to try something new here. Because whether they call it guardian policing, warrior policing, activist policing, whatever, but they have a cop watch. I've worked heavily with cop watch people too. Someone needs to be able to be deprogrammed, as you mentioned, when they witness these violent incidents, whether they be shootings or children sodomized or just the aftermath of traffic fatalities. I mean, all this compounds the mind, and whatever human being that is, it's going to affect them. Okay, whatever human being. So we really need to understand it, because we don't want to admit, oh, I have mental issues. Okay, right. And if you have mental issues, that must mean you're crazy. There's something wrong with you. Okay, and so we really need to work at getting away from these type of stigmas that I believe are hindering us, because, I mean, look what you did. I mean, it was so amazing for you to write your book at that time in 1997, where these hip hop murders were going on, and you knew you were going to be attacked. It must have been the most scariest experience, right? But right, I could only imagine. I was scared for you, and I didn't even know you back then. I was terrified. I was like, what are they going to do to this guy? Yeah. But here you are. 22 years later, you have a beautiful family. You've raised great children, and here speaking to Anderson Cooper on CNN, and just giving really on the spot analysis for what we're doing here today. And that's what we need to continue doing, is really talking about this. And the good thing about you, my friend, is you've never been self-serving. You've never been one of those type of people, well, I want to sell a book, or do this type of thing. You have always been one trying to educate people and have great poise, in presenting yourself and dealing with these difficult topics, and I'm just hoping that we continue this here and bring on, others that will say the same things that we've been saying for the past umpteen years.
Oh, yeah, we will. So in wrapping up, in closing, what is it that you want to leave the listeners, the viewers? What message, what point would you like to leave everyone?
Well, for my fellow white police officer friends, retired, active duty, those of you who have killed a lot of blacks, I have friends too that fit into that arena. You guys got to realize that a lot of you developed mental issue problems from being in that environment for so many years. As many of you know, I've talked very publicly regarding my extreme shortcomings in being the person that I wanted to be. But most of all, what I wanted to do is I wanted to share with you, just like Brian, it's become my labor of love to talk about this, to get this message out in a very, very powerful way, that you guys get it through your head that there is no blue family. The blue family will abandon you.
Right.
Okay, so don't be like that in that Jim Jones cult. Okay, no, I follow that line, thin blue line. They got my back. Nobody has your fucking back. Okay, whether you're federal, state, local, or whatever, they will abandon your ass. Okay, rather, I recommend you. I appeared recently with the Wounded Blue. Look at Wounded Blue TV on Twitter. This was a movie that they made that for police officers that are abandoned by their departments. Excellent film because it touches on so much that's going on out there with the mindset of police officers. And so in talking to these officers here, again, I address mainly the white ones. I know that there's several of you that are good people out there. I've worked with you. Kevin Murphy, who gave the tribute to John Lewis called The Apology Heard Around the World, who in Montgomery, Alabama said, I'm sorry for beating you guys, even though he wasn't there that day. He apologized. He atoned for the ass whipping that the marchers gave on Bloody Sunday. There's also David Cooper, another white former police chief. He wrote a book called Arrested Development. He had a picture of himself as a young chief with Dr. King and Mahatma Gandhi right behind him. I mean, just amazing man who has really impacted me in trying to understand the white mind. Why are some really extremely racist and some are in that process of discovering themselves still, like how I did. As I mentioned, I became a racist also. And so it's really important for us to really talk to our white brothers and sisters and others, that they really understand, what's going on here, the mental health aspect of the PTSD.
Mm-hmm.
And so with that, I just leave you that, my friend. Thank you again for inviting me. I'm kind of overwhelmed by, talking to the Brian Bentley.
Well, this
You're just amazing, my friend. Thank you again.
you're the amazing one, and we're going to do this again. We're going to do this regularly, and we're going to make a difference. We're going to make that change that we've always talked about doing.
All right.
Thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you.
All right.